What's up, folks? My name's Eb&Flow. I'm a rapper, animator, producer, and commentator from Cincinnati, Ohio. I want to talk to you today about an issue I think is a threat to hip-hop as we know it, grifters and rap culture. First of all, some people may not know what I mean by grifter, so I'll start with a simple definition and explain what I mean as we go. A grifter is a person who engages in petty or small-scale swindling. In other words, a snake oil salesman, someone who sells things that they don't believe in. I'm here talking to you today because I predict a growing wave of grifters in the coming years will attempt to appropriate and colonize rap culture, more so than it has been already, to redirect the political narrative of the culture to become more conservative-leaning. There's significant evidence that this pattern is already happening in front of our eyes, and my fear is, if hip-hop as a culture fails to make it clear where we stand politically, as we have in the past, we risk the narrative of our culture being seized and redirected by people who aren't involved in the culture and don't care about it beyond the political capital of the black community. I have to stop and acknowledge the appropriation issue. Some people, maybe a lot, maybe a few, will look at me as a white rapper and perceive me automatically as a part of the appropriation problem. The talk of white artists posing the same threat of appropriation as to jazz, rock and roll, and most other American genres is not new, and it's also fair. I won't sit here and argue against that because that's what I signed up for. But I'm here to tell you that there are real appropriators setting up shop within this culture, and they want to use the magic of the culture to convince black people and hip-hop listeners to embrace anti-black conservative agendas that we have fought against for decades. There's a difference between an Eminem or an Action Bronson, who clearly benefit from their skin color but also clearly use their platform to contribute, and a Tom MacDonald, who is an obvious poser and grifter that wants to use hip-hop as a vehicle to capitalize on anger and dejection that festers within white demographics. Who does that remind you of? But more on that later. My point is, I believe a political reckoning is imminent within hip-hop culture. During the last 4 years of Trump, the culture has largely failed to stand up against his novel form of bigotry. Aside from a hit song here or there, political rap has effectively been neutralized as a force of social pressure and change. As a fan and student and progenitor of this craft, I find that simply unacceptable. And now that Trump is out of the public eye, online environments are primed for seemingly grassroots movements funded by wealthy conservatives to do everything that they can to seed and spread ideas that benefit them within a culture that they view as valuable and vulnerable. And trust me when I say that they do view us as vulnerable, and they've got their foot in the door. There's a lot to talk about here. I want to give more examples and give you guys some sources to research and decide for yourselves. But for now, I'll leave you with the example laid out by J. Cole in his track 1985. The song, which fans have presumed is about Lil Pump, explains the difference between building a loyal, honest fan base that will support you as an artist through the hardest of times, and a temporary, trend-based fan presence that will pay for concert tickets and blow up your bank account in the short term, but will inevitably abandon you once the trend that you rode in on has passed. The contrast between these two artists couldn't be a better example, age difference aside, and the lack of shows during coronavirus is a great litmus test. Where do you see J. Cole? You don't. He's built a strong enough fan presence that he doesn't need to do stunts or be visible to continue his business. He has control of his music and puts his artists in positions to have control of theirs, and the fans support. Where do you see Lil Pump? On stage at a Trump rally, smiling like a child as one of the most racist public figures in recent history calls him Lil Pimp. I assure you all, he was most definitely paid for this, or at least he was supposed to be. This is the difference between someone who is dedicated to this culture and someone who is a grifter. Grifters go where the money is, they say what they need to say, and they don't care who's paying them. They're also useful idiots, happily trotting out the agenda of someone more powerful than them as long as they get their check. Because of the infinite political value of black people in America, these grifters will not stop trying to carve out pieces of our culture for themselves. And if every artist that considers themselves true to hip-hop doesn't decide now where we stand and use our voices and platforms to challenge the intentions of those who spread anti-black propaganda within our ranks, we could lose the narrative of this culture for good.